Welcome to the Lunar Holistic Podcast. I'm your host, Geneva Robbins, and every month on this podcast, we'll talk about Reiki, as well as answering your questions on all things spiritual. We are gratefully located in Calgary in Treaty 7 territory. Thank you all and welcome to the show. Hello, my name is Geneva Robbins, and this is the Lunar Holistic Podcast. This episode, we'll be talking about lunar harmony, being in harmony with the cycles of the moon and riding through all of the waves that happen in our astrological energetic weather, and how we've got some tools to help you connect to that lunar cycle and the energy of the moon as it goes from new moon to full moon, back to new moon, and how you as a sensitive person can know when those waves are happening in the world and how you can actually not just brace yourself for the big waves of energy, but also ride through them. What can you do to surf through these big energetic experiences that are kind of happening in the cosmos and how it impacts us on a personal and spiritual level? So we'll start, as we always do, with our collective breath of gratitude, a little micro meditation just to connect. If you are not driving, you can close your eyes. And if you are, maybe keep your eyes open. That'd be good. Or pull over and just have a little moment to collect yourself and breathe. So yeah, you can take a few gentle breaths, just letting everything soften and settle, just flowing your energy into the earth and noticing the energy of the earth flowing back to you. Letting everything ground and connect and allow all parts of yourself to arrive in this present moment. Take a deep inhale and a big exhale. Bringing your awareness to the bottoms of your feet, the bottom of your spine, and that general connection of gravity. Can you notice which way is down? Can you notice the ground below you? And just take a big sigh of relief into that space. Letting your awareness spread out through the land all around you, noticing the trees and plants and animals, the water bodies, the groundwater and the air. Just noticing the gravity of Earth and expanding your awareness to that slight tug of gravity of the moon. And to all of this energy, send out a wave of gratitude and allow that gratitude to return back to you, reflected and illuminated in your own heart, so that each inhale is a wave of gratitude and each exhale is a wave of gratitude. Wonderful. And when you're ready, you can gently wiggle your fingers and your toes, integrating with your physical body, and gently open your eyes. Thank you. That was lovely. I always like those little moments of meditation and rest. It's always so delightful to, just connect and create that powerful energy that we can generate just by our attention and focus. So let's hop into our topic, this lunar harmony cycle. So the moon is this powerful energy that some of us can feel. So if you do a lot of spiritual work, if you meditate, or you are kind of connected into the cycles and seasons of the earth, and you might find that you are really sensitive to energies. You can feel the moon, you can feel the new moon, and that cycle and rhythm of energy sort of ripples through all of us all of the time. If you think of the moon itself, it is sort of orbiting the earth, but it's creating tides. It's pulling with gravity on the whole of the earth as it's passing by. And people who work in frontline capacities, emergency services, nurses, doctors, and even school teachers, they notice that around the times of the full moon, the energy gets busy and chaotic. It's something that is well talked about, at least behind closed doors amongst themselves, of knowing what's happening with the moon. And sometimes you can see it even driving in traffic, that there are some days where everybody's just on edge and twitchy, and other days where it's just smooth sailing. Nobody's in a rush. Everything is just flowing with harmony. And what makes the difference to that sort of collective energy? There's lots of things that can affect us, including the weather and kind of greater geopolitical situations can definitely impact us. But there is this sort of cycle of this energy of the moon that does have an impact on us. And for sensitive people like me, I always thought, oh my goodness, what is happening? I would get sort of this wave of energy, and I'd think, what is going on? Why is this all happening? Why do I feel so discombobulated when just yesterday I felt fine? And then I would look up what was happening astrologically, and I'd be like, oh, well, that's why it was a new moon and I didn't notice it. Or there was a planet in retrograde, and when I'd look up the description, it all made sense. Or there was an eclipse, and there's these sort of moments of astrological weather. That's the way I like to think of it, is like there's times where the energy is just intense. There's a lot of forces, these energetic forces pulling on us. And for a long time, I took astrological things and events with a grain of salt. I do come from a science background, and my zodiac descriptions never seemed to quite fit me, or there were parts of it that I was like, well, I don't know if that's really me, or that could be really general and fit anybody. But then enough of these things started happening, and I'd start hearing other people talking about, like, oh, the reason that technology's haywire is because Mercury's in retrograde. And I would go, that's weird. And then as I kept on going through, I started noticing this pattern that when things either felt really smooth and energetic, or there was a surge of energy, or where things felt like they were going backwards no matter what I did, it was just sort of this comical delay after delay after delay, hitting roadblocks with things. I started seeing this pattern. And when I started looking into it more for myself, I could just see this correlation. There's a number of things that I think energetically affect us, including our own thoughts. So there's always that. It's like, maybe it's my thoughts about it that put me in harmony with the moon. That could be a valid thing too. But I kind of feel like there's a lot of information about this lunar cycle, and throughout many different cultures and histories, there's this lunar calendar and paying attention to where the moon is in its cycle has been important throughout our histories, in particular our spiritual histories. And what's fascinating, as I looked into it more, I see that there's a lot of correlation between vastly different cultures coming up with pretty much very, very similar ideas or concepts around this lunar cycle. So that's kind of where I've come to. And so what I've developed is this moon calendar where I've color coded all of these, energies and cycles within cycles that are all in flux all of the time. It can get quite complicated as you start learning more about it. And I will be the first to admit I am not an astrologer. Just I'm very much an amateur. And I just notice what I notice and how I use the lunar cycle, how I let it inform me. And I work with these cycles in nature rather than fighting them. So there's waves of energy that are happening all of the time. And instead of trying to push things when maybe it's better to rest, and you actually genuinely rest on those rest days and then move forward and take action on days of action. I find when I'm working within those cycles and rhythms within the lunar cycle, but also within the seasonal cycle, things just flow. I get out of that push or pull. I'm not trying to enforce my will on the world. I'm working with it, and it's like a breath or a flow. And what's beautiful about that is that then you can basically get help with whatever you are creating, whatever you are manifesting, whatever you are healing. You can ride this sort of healing wave through the lunar cycle. So I've color coded all of these cycles with the chakra system because that's something that I know really well. And when I studied it, for many, many years, I would get out my highlighters and highlight days of energy that were in harmony for certain tasks and out of harmony for other tasks. But then I would, get busy and not do that. And then I'd think, oh, what's happening? And then I'd go back and check everything out. So what I've done is I've created this moon calendar so that just visually you can look at it and you can see a pattern in the colors of the days based on the chakras. And each of the chakras govern a different part of our lives, a different energy within us. And when you shift your self-care for the energy of the chakras, which harmonizes with the energy in different days and phases of the moon cycle, then you are taking care of every single part of your energetic anatomy, every single part of your life, from your roots to practical, worldly, routine things, to your spiritual connection and essence and everything in between. It all gets balanced, and you're spending time and energy and your focus on taking care of the parts of you that there's an energy that is presented in the universe, in the world, for you to take action on those things on those days. So if a day has an orange color on it, the orange is connected to the sacral chakra. That could be connected to creativity, abundance, connection, joy, flow, and sacred spirituality and sacred sexuality. So those are all great days to flow energy towards those kinds of things. On a day that is maybe dark blue, the third eye chakra, that might be a really good day to get a bigger picture, to get a world view, to make your grand plans. It might be a really good day to meditate and connect and study and learn, because this all has to do with your third eye chakra, which is all about expanding your intuition and learning and growth. So there's all of these cycles within cycles, and so you can use this moon calendar to see what the energetic weather is, what's coming up. And I use it all of the time, all of the time. So I've talked about the cycles within cycles. So there's the the lunar cycle, which is about a month, where the moon goes from new moon, waxes to full, and then wanes, gets smaller and smaller until it's that little sliver of light, that little reverse crescent, which you call the balsamic moon, and then it goes back to the new moon. That cycle has a rhythm where if you can set your intention on a new moon, and then notice how it's growing or paying attention and taking action at different phases of the moon, you can spot where that intention is coming into your life, even in tiny little ways, noticing what has been fulfilled by the full moon, and to reflect on what's happening in your life, maybe where you want to course correct or heal or release even more. What is that big bright light of the full moon shining into your heart, shining light into your intention, and starting to bring an energy to you of whatever it is that you are wanting? And then on the return phase where it's waning, we are spending time basically putting that energy, all of the gifts that we have received, and we are putting it into practice by being generous, by sharing what we've learned. If money has manifested in a lunar cycle, then that waning phase of the moon is a good time to give back to your community, to be generous, to be of service. And then the very end is to sort of reflect on the whole cycle. What has come into your life? What would you like to release? It's a good time to release and let go of anything that you don't want to take into the next lunar cycle. And then you're right back to the new moon, and then you set an intention again. And I really love that rhythm and cycle. Within that, each lunar day, the moon rises and sets just like the sun. And so a lunar day is sort of that cycle from lunar rise to lunar rise. And in those lunar days, each day has a particular energy to it. So those cycles are about the same length as a solar day. So from sunrise all the way through your 24-hour day back to sunrise again. But the moon cycle has a slightly different offset pattern to our solar day, which can make it a little bit more complicated. And then on top of that cycle is a 2.5-day cycle where the moon cycles through each zodiac sign. So every 2.5 days, we're switching from one zodiac sign to another. And so part of the way I've sort of captured this is to take all of those energies and then put them into these Lunar Harmony invitations that are part of the Lunar Harmony Planner, which is sort of a daily planner that takes you through the whole year. The next one will be out very shortly. If not out already, you can order it through the website. We'll have lots of links for you to pick up either the lunar calendar, which is just a traditional calendar that you can hang on your wall, and the lunar planner, which is a 365-day planner where you can go through each page and you can sort of plan out your day based on the energy of the moon. And each Lunar Harmony invitation is basically putting all of those cycles within cycles and rhythms and energies. And basically, I've written a couple of lines of what that energy is for that particular day, whether it's a good day to set an intention or whether it's a good day to look for the little signs of spring that your intention is happening, if it's a day for action or if it's a day for like following your intuition and letting things just rest and come to you. So you're really following more of an organic cycle that's in harmony with the cycles that are happening in nature. So that sort of rhythm and that cycle can harmonize you basically with the energy of the moon. But also, I pay attention to and I keep track of eclipses, of other planetary retrogrades. Basically, I made it for me. So anything that I feel like I need to pay attention to, I create it so that I know what is happening, so that I'm not bowled over by this wave of energy, but then I can prepare for it. So I think of like astrological weather the same way I think of physical weather. It's like you kind of want to know, like, is it going to be really stormy? Is it going to be icy on the roads? Am I going to need a jacket, or is it going to be hot and sunny? And sometimes it may not matter all that much what is happening in the physical weather because you're planning on being inside. And other times it might matter a lot because you're going to be out in it. And it's sort of the same thing with this astrological or energetic weather. For some people, and for some types of jobs and some kinds of work and interactions with other people, you might not notice any of this. And you might think, I don't know what she is talking about. That's okay. there's plenty of room for all kinds of experiences. But if you are out in it a lot, so maybe you have a very public facing job, or you're out and about a lot, or you have sort of a high performance kind of job, or you're in a creative field and you're a solopreneur and you are making your living with creativity. And creativity is a non-linear process, and it follows a much more organic rhythm than anything else we do. So it requires recharge, it requires rest, it requires curiosity and play and cross-pollination. So getting out there in the community and talking to other people. It requires also showing up like a pack horse and just getting her done. And all of those energies are within the lunar cycle. So when you look at the energies on each day has a rhythm and energy to it. There are some days that have a little green dot, or they're great for business. There's an energy that's supportive to them that can bring in sort of more connections with other people. And then there's days that will have a little red dot on them that are not as good for business. And they are great days to be at home, to work on your own stuff, probably avoid meetings, those sorts of things. So yeah, it's beautiful. I really like working with it. I find the manifesting potential of just setting an intention, paying attention to the moon can really bring a lot of, I don't know, peace, solace. It connects us to something larger than us. Sometimes we get disconnected from nature if we're living in a busy city and we're sort of not seeing or not impacted by weather as much, or seeing the sky at night, sitting around the campfire days. When we get disconnected from nature, I feel like it can disconnect us in general. And even though we are living in cities and towns and those sorts of things, we can still bring back that connection to nature by just paying attention to the lunar cycle, just noticing when is the moon full. And when the moon is full, it's a beautiful time to do some healing work, to send out just an energy of loving kindness and gratitude. It's a beautiful day to shed illusions and to meditate. It's a beautiful time to really reflect on where you want to be in the next lunar cycle. And also seeing how with all of the gifts that you've been given, how can you share some of that bounty that nature has bestowed on you? Because everything we have, every drop of good in our life, that all comes from the earth. There is not a single thing we own or experience or we interconnect with that doesn't at some point come from the soil. And so when we are paying attention to nature and in those cycles and rhythms, it puts us in harmony with something deep and primal and healing. And in that space, we get to connect to something greater. So even if you're not sure about what your spiritual belief systems are, but you just feel a lot, maybe you can feel a lot of energy, and you know what I'm talking about with the energy and cycles of the moon. If we just spend a little bit of time honoring that cycle, knowing that cycle is reflected within us, we see it in nature, this coming into being, this growing and flourishing, and then this falling away, and this return. And so we are living forever within this cycle. And when we start thinking about things in our lives in terms of circles, like putting ourselves in the circle of nature rather than this linear thought that we are born, some things happen, and then we die, and then we blip out of existence. The truth is we cycle and recycle. And when we stop taking ourselves out of the game, taking ourselves out of nature, we start seeing how we're interconnected with all things. We start living and flowing with that greater energy, and that greater energy starts living and flowing within us. And then magical things happen. And this is something you can test out in your own life. You don't have to take it from me. I prefer that you didn't. I prefer that you just take this 1 month to really pay attention to what's happening within the cycles and seasons of your life. We'll have some links in the show notes where you can sign up for our newsletter and get a PDF of the next lunar month. And you can just try it out before you commit to buying the moon calendar or the lunar planner. Just test it, see if it works, see if anything shifts. Take those little Lunar Harmony invitations and see what energy can spark for you. Yeah. Okay. So when I'm recording this, it is right now, it's the new moon of November. And when you're listening to it, if you listen to it right when it comes out, it is the full moon of November. So I thought this was beautiful cosmic timing. I'm just going to read you I hope it's good. I never look ahead. I write all of this stuff and now I'm looking at it. I'm going to read you the Lunar Harmony invitation for November 15th, 2024, because it'll be the full moon. It's the full moon in Taurus. It's also Saturn direct, which is always really great because it means that taskmaster planet Saturn is at least pulling in our direction. The moon day energy is the aura and the heart. So you can spend some time in caring for your energetic bubble and your heart. The full moon can be all about the throat chakra. So you can think about getting your voice out in there and this energy of gratitude and reflection. So the invitation, lots of energy today. You may want to charge ahead, but let the energy fill you up completely first. Meditate and be still. Let all of the good gather and go slow and steady. Let your ideas turn into clear crystals and bring them to earth now. There you go. That's your reflection for this new moon. There's many, many more moons ahead of us. And if you want to catch any of that happenings with the moon calendar, you can check out the links in the show notes. And until next time, bye-bye. Thank you for joining us on the Lunar Holistic Podcast. We're so grateful that you are here. If you've got a question, we'd love to hear from you. Go to lunarholistic.com/podcast and we'll answer you in an upcoming episode. Be sure to subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And also please rate, because you never know where your little 5 stars will go to shine light into somebody's heart today. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.